Like Blade Runner 2049 and Top Gun Maverick, Beetlejuice falls into the camp of receiving a sequel decades after its original and has the tricky needle to thread of standing on its own while simultaneously still serving as an extension of the story that came before it. And while Beetlejuice is less of a bungled generational baton pass than Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, or even as a clear punctuation on the franchise like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Beetlejuice manages to be a largely enjoyable film while not entirely skirting out of the original's looming and canted shadow. In Beetlejuice, comma, Beetlejuice, you gotta be careful there, is back as the trickster demon conniving his way yet again into the lives and deaths of the Dietz family. The film picks up appropriately decades after the events of the original Beetlejuice, with Lydia Dietz, played by Winona Ryder, now being a televised ghost psychic, with a manipulative doting manager and boyfriend Rory, played by Justin Theroux, and her estranged daughter Astrid, played by Jenny Ortega. But the titular Beetlejuice, reprised by Michael Keaton, has never given up on his hopes of wedding Lydia, and is dead set on making his way back to the surface to claim his bride. Concurrent and somewhat independent of all of this, and we'll touch on that shortly, Beetlejuice's original bride from when he was alive, played by Monica Bellucci, is back and hunting him down, which sets in motion a string of underworld homicide cases. That then introduces us to a crime unit headed up by Wolf Jackson, played by Willem Dafoe, and he easily is given one of the best recurring gags with his secretary, played by Georgina Beadle. Not Juice, just Beadle, spelled Beedle, not the... Never mind. The film also brings back Danny Elfman providing a haunted, jaunty score, and director Tim Burton really cranks his style up to 11, so much so that I actually feel that Joel Schumacher just overshot Batman Forever by about 2 decades in terms of the style that Burton was eventually going to be encapsulating. He just wasn't there yet. So I actually stand by my point, but I got a thing wrong in that Batman Forever next year will be celebrating its 30th anniversary, which makes me feel like dust. Just to over-explain the point, I was suggesting that Joel Schumacher, when he made Batman Forever, was trying to replicate Tim Burton's style and went too far on the dial. However, since that time, Tim Burton has sort of matched it, but I said 2 decades, it's actually 3 decades, and that realization makes me feel like a skeleton man, because I want to believe that the 90s are closer and death is not imminent. Now, it's an interesting thing that both Winona Ryder and Michael Keaton have had resurgences with major hits like Stranger Things and Birdman or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, respectively. My concern going into this was that the script would lean too heavily on Keaton, as, I mean, come on, the title says Beetlejuice twice, so there's an expectation of more of that character, right? Fortunately, screenwriters Alfred Goh and Miles Miller showed restraint. Any story about the dead is equally about the living, and Lydia is understandably and appropriately central to the overall story and her relationship to her daughter and their various trials and tribulations. And while Keaton's juice is plenty present, his screen time is much more similar to that of Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl, in that he's pivotal to the plot and definitely chewing the scenery whenever present and an absolute delight to watch. However, unlike the original Pirates, well, now astute viewers might have noticed that when I was running through the plot, I failed to mention Catherine O'Hara at all. She's comedically exceptional and has similarly had a resurgence in popularity with Schitt's Creek, but in Beetlejuice as Delia Dietz, she is given shockingly little to do. This is a trend I've seen with a lot of films recently, with an ever-expanding cast. There are so many characters that the film is trying to serve, but some characters, like O'Hara and Bellucci, are often sidelined, the latter of which is rather ridiculous since she's established as a looming threat, but does very little in terms of complications. Sure, in a very roundabout way, you can say that the Dietzes are responsible for her reassembly and arrival, but it feels more accidental and inconsequential, and she doesn't know that they're to blame or thank. That's not to say that I was hoping this would be some sort of Godzilla versus Kong or Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice situation where Lydia and Beetlejuice need to team up to best Monica Bellucci. Like I said, the current amount of Keaton is exactly correct. But in a movie about trickster demons and loopholes, while the middle has some good crossings as characters need to cross over and back, there aren't any real fun double crosses, and none of that madcap mayhem involves Bellucci at all. She's just kind of elsewhere, vapidly doing her own thing, rather than being involved directly in the plot, resulting in the start and finish feeling a little frayed at the ends. But I'm afraid it may sound like I'm coming down very hard on Beetlejuice, and that really is not my intention. While I personally don't need retreads or allusions to the previous film with a choral performance of Deo, the needless stitching of sandworms, or a reprisal of lip-sync puppetry performances, the original stuff that Beetlejuice shows off is an honest-to-goodness blast, and there is a healthy amount of inventive surprises throughout. The world of the underworld is twisted and inviting. Mark Scruton, the production designer, Colleen Atwood on costume design, and the whole hair and makeup department just knocked it out of the park. There is personality that oozes from this film in the grossest and most delightful of ways. And the pacing, particularly in the middle, is snappy, light on its undead feet, and most importantly, fun. The movie is zippy, it's crass, it doesn't take itself too seriously, yet still manages to deliver some heartfelt moments. Would I want another sequel? Honestly, sure, though given the choice, I'd certainly prefer a spin-off with Willem Dafoe's character. But as far as franchise revivals go, this was a success. Am I an easy mark for this sort of undead journey? I mean, yeah, I do have a comic about a teenager raised by ghosts. If you do want to read that comic, it's free online. Also, we've got like merch and stuff, but you know, do what you want. Live Moss. Beetlejuice does what it set out to do. It expands on what came before it, like Ghostbusters Frozen Empire or Alien Romulus, while not getting too caught up in the legacy, so it can simultaneously stand on its own, like Furiosa Mad Max Saga, or Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, or Twisters. God, Hollywood just needs to quit with these like dormant decade-jumping sequels. Also kind of wild how there have been 3 movies this year with like double titles. We had Beetlejuice, then we also had Sing Sing, which had exceptional performances, and then Dee Dee, which really nails the nostalgia of the early aughts and is an exceptional coming-of-age tale. Both are great and worth your time, so comment, click, and keep loving movies, because those are my thoughts on Beetlejuice. As for me, well, speaking of things being doubled, I got myself a double animal style protein style. This is how you live Moss.